My name is Rachel. I'm 26 years old. Before everything happened, the love, the betrayal, the heartbreak, I was just a woman trying to find her place in the world. I lived in a small apartment on the west side of town. It wasn't much, but it was mine. I had a steady job at a publishing office, not the kind that made you rich, but the kind that gave you a reason to wake up every morning. I liked quiet mornings, soft music, and coffee that tasted slightly bitter. I was the kind of person who smiled at strangers, cried during movies, and believed that maybe, just maybe, good things could still happen. But life had not been soft with me. I lost my mother to cancer when I was 19. It was sudden and brutal. After that, I felt like I was walking through fog. My father remarried a year later, and we slowly drifted apart. I had no siblings, no one to really call home anymore. And then came love, or at least what I thought was love. I had 2 serious relationships before Charlie. The first one ended because he cheated. The second one ended because I stopped trying. I was tired of giving so much and receiving so little. Somewhere along the way, I convinced myself that maybe love just wasn't for me. Maybe I was meant to live alone, decorate my own space, and find happiness in quiet things. But the truth, I was lonely. I smiled on the outside, but inside, I longed for something more, not just a boyfriend, not just someone to text goodnight. I wanted a partner, a safe space, a hand to hold when life felt heavy. Still, I kept going. I showed up at work, I laughed with coworkers, I celebrated birthdays, even downloaded a dating app once, but never used it. I tried to stay hopeful, even when my heart felt empty. Looking back now, maybe that's what made me fall so fast when Charlie came into my life. I wasn't just looking for love, I was craving it. I didn't know it then, but my whole world was about to change. It was a Thursday evening. I remember because Thursdays were the slowest days at work. The kind of day where the clock felt frozen, and your coffee went cold before you even finished half the cup. I had just left the office and stopped by the bookstore 2 blocks away, my little escape place. I wasn't planning to buy anything, just browse, maybe clear my head. That's when I saw him. He stood in the poetry section, wearing a gray hoodie and dark jeans. His head was tilted slightly as he read the back cover of a book. His hair was messy in a charming way, and there was something soft about his face, like he was deep in thought. Or maybe a little sad. I don't know why I noticed him. Maybe it was the quiet way he stood. Maybe it was the book he was holding. One I'd read 3 times. I didn't speak to him that day, but I saw him again the next week. Same bookstore, same section. This time, he noticed me too. I was standing near the fiction shelves, flipping through a novel, when he walked past and glanced at me. Just a glance. But there was a faint smile on his lips. Not the kind men give when they're trying to flirt. It was warm, polite, familiar. It became a routine after that. Every Thursday evening, we'd both somehow end up in the same bookstore. We never spoke, just soft smiles, a nod, maybe a quiet "excuse me" if we passed too closely. And then, one evening, he finally said something. "You have good taste in books." Those were his first words to me. I looked up from the page I was reading, He was standing next to me, holding a coffee from the small cafe inside the store. "Thanks," I said, surprised by how calm he sounded. "You've been hanging around the poetry section for weeks. I figured you were a writer or something." He laughed. It was a low, easy laugh that settled in my chest like warmth. "Not a writer, just someone who doesn't know how to stop overthinking," he said. We talked for over an hour that evening. His name was Charlie. He was 29, a freelance photographer, and recently moved back into town after years of traveling. He had a quiet way of speaking, like every word had weight. But he also had this spark in his eyes when he talked about art, light, and the way moments could be captured and frozen in time. There was something magnetic about him, not loud, not dramatic, just real. And I felt seen. He asked about my work, and when I told him I worked in publishing, his eyes lit up. "So you're one of the people who gets to make books happen," he said, and it didn't sound like flattery. It sounded like admiration. That night, we walked out of the bookstore together. He offered to walk me to my car. It was only 2 blocks away, but I didn't mind. We talked a lot during the walk. I remember how quiet the streets were, how the air felt fresh, and how for the first time in a long while, I wasn't thinking about loneliness. Before I got at my car, he said, "Same time next week?" I nodded, and just like that, something began. Before we continue, I'd truly love to know, where are you watching from? Please let me know in the comments below. It would mean so much to me. The weeks that followed were filled with slow, unfolding moments. We met at the bookstore every Thursday, then coffee, then lunch on weekends, then late-night phone calls. At first it was all so natural. No pressure, no expectations, just 2 people sharing time and stories. He told me about his childhood, how he was raised by his grandma after his parents divorced. He had a younger sister he was protective of. He once backpacked across Europe with nothing but a camera and a worn-out notebook. I told him about my mom, about the fact I didn't really have friends, about the way I cried the day I turned 25 and felt like I was still stuck in life. He listened fully, like I mattered, and slowly, I started falling for his voice, his mind, the way he made me laugh when I didn't even feel like smiling. He wasn't perfect. He had scars, bad habits, and days when he disappeared into himself, but I didn't care. I wasn't looking for perfection. I was looking for someone who made me feel safe, and for a while, Charlie did. But looking back now, I wonder, did I fall too fast? Did I ignore the signs? There were little things. The way he sometimes avoided talking about the future. The way he brushed off questions about his past relationship. Once, he missed our Thursday meetup with no explanation. When I asked, he simply said, "I had to clear my head." I didn't press him. I told myself everyone has off days, but the heart sees what it wants to see, and mine had already chosen him. There's a certain kind of silence that doesn't come from peace. It comes from distance, from something, someone, pulling away slowly, quietly, like the tide withdrawing from the shore. That was what it felt like with Charlie. At first, I didn't notice, or maybe I just didn't want to. We had been dating for about 7 months by then. It was no longer just Thursday bookstore meetups and coffee shop laughs. I had grown used to his voice at the end of my day. I knew which side of the bed he preferred, how he liked his eggs, and the way he furrowed his brows when he was editing photos late into the night. He had met my coworkers. We had gone on a weekend trip to Asheville. He even started leaving some of his things at my place. A hoodie here, a shaving kit there. It felt real. It felt steady. But then something shifted. It began with the little things. He started texting back slower. Not hours late, but just long enough to make me notice. He still called, still showed up, but something in his tone had changed. Softer, more distracted, like he was talking to me, but his mind was somewhere else. One night, we were watching a movie at my apartment. I leaned into him like I always did, resting my head on his shoulder. But he didn't wrap his arm around me. He just sat there, still, distant. "Are you okay?" I asked quietly. "Yeah," he replied too quickly, "just tired. Long day." I nodded. I wanted to believe him. But something inside me whispered, "No, it's not just that." A week later, he canceled one of our Thursday meetups. "Gotta shoot out of town," he texted. "Won't be back till late. Rain check?" "Sure. No problem." Except the next Thursday, he was late, and the Thursday after that, he didn't show up at all. I waited in the bookstore for over an hour. I tried not to panic. I told myself people get busy. Life happens. But when I called him that night, he didn't pick up, just a voicemail I'd heard too many times. It wasn't like him. He called back the next morning, sounding unusually cheerful. "Sorry, babe. My shoot ran longer than expected and I crashed at a friend's place. I should have let you know." "I'm sorry," he said. I forgave him. Of course, I always did. But something in my chest began to tighten. That little whisper growing louder. A few nights later, we were having dinner at my place. He was scrolling through his phone, and I asked, "Do you think we're okay?" I said calmly. He looked up and asked, "What do you mean?" "I don't know. You've just seemed different lately, distant," I said honestly. He gave a small smile, the kind that doesn't reach the eyes. "I guess I've just been in my head. It's nothing serious, work stuff, life stuff," he replied. I wanted to believe him, but I knew him. And this wasn't just work or life. This was us. He kissed me that night like he always did, softly, slowly, his hand resting gently on my cheek. But even in that kiss, I could feel something slipping through my fingers, like trying to hold water. I told myself it was a phase, that every relationship has highs and lows, that if I just held on a little tighter, everything would go back to how it was. But what I didn't know then was that I was holding on to something that was already beginning to fade. I was 2 weeks late. At first, I didn't think much of it. My cycle had never been perfectly regular. Stress, diet, lack of sleep, any of those could throw it off. I told myself it was probably nothing. But deep down, something felt different. There was this dull ache low in my stomach, and my chest was sore in a way that wasn't normal. I felt constantly tired, even when I hadn't done anything that day. And there was a strange sensitivity to smells. Coffee, which I used to love, suddenly made my stomach turn. I tried not to panic, but my mind wouldn't stop doing the math. I bought a pregnancy test from the pharmacy around the corner. I didn't even tell my best friend. I couldn't. Not yet. I remember standing in my bathroom, staring at that tiny white stick like it held the power to rewrite my entire future. I waited, and there it was, 2 pink lines, faint but there, undeniable. I sat down on the bathroom floor, my knees pulled to my chest, and for a long time I didn't cry. I just stared. My thoughts were racing, but my body was frozen. Pregnant. I was pregnant. And Charlie had been drifting away. What was I supposed to do? That evening, I tried to act normal when he came over. I made dinner, chicken stir-fry, his favorite, and pretended everything was fine. I watched him talk about a new client he was photographing, laughing lightly over his glass of wine. And I wondered how to even begin to say it. How do you tell someone something that could change everything, especially when you're not even sure if they still love you? I waited until we were on the couch. His hand rested loosely on mine, but his body felt miles away. I turned down the volume on the TV and took a breath. "Charlie," I said softly. He turned to me, eyebrows slightly raised, and answered, "Yeah?" I swallowed. My voice shook as I spoke. "I need to tell you something. It's important." He sat up straighter, immediately alert. "What's going on?" he said. I could feel my heart pounding against my ribs. I felt like I was about to break apart. "I'm pregnant," I said. The words hung in the air like smoke, heavy, invisible, but suffocating. Charlie blinked. "What?" "I took a test yesterday, and another one today, both positive," I said with a shaky voice. He was silent for a long time. Too long. I couldn't read his face. His eyes dropped to the floor. He exhaled slowly and leaned back, running his hand through his hair. "Are you sure?" he asked. I nodded. "Yes." He stood up and started pacing the room. "Wow, this is a lot." "I know," I whispered. "I mean, we didn't plan this. We're not even living together. I don't even know what to say," he said, pacing. I sat frozen, my fingers clenched in my lap. "I'm not asking you for anything. I just thought you deserved to know," I said. He stopped and looked at me and said, "What are you going to do?" "I don't know. I need time to think," I said, tears welling up. He sighed and sat down again, this time on the edge of the couch. He didn't touch me, didn't hold me, just stared ahead like he was somewhere else entirely. Neither of us spoke for a while. Eventually, he stood up and said, "I need some air." And then he left. He didn't say he'd call. Didn't ask if I was okay. He just walked out, and I sat there, alone in the silence, holding my stomach. The night felt colder than usual, and for the first time in a long time, I felt truly alone. The door didn't slam when he left. It clicked shut, softly, almost politely, like even his exit didn't want to make a scene. I sat there on the couch for what felt like hours. My hands were still resting on my lap, my thoughts tangled like thread in a broken sewing box. Everything inside me felt heavy, like my body was trying to hold back a storm. Pregnant, alone, and unsure if the man I loved was ever coming back. I didn't sleep that night. I laid on my side, eyes wide open, staring at the wall while the clock ticked. Each minute that passed felt like another piece of my old life breaking off and disappearing. He didn't call. Not that night. Not the next morning either. I checked my phone obsessively, hoping to see his name. I left it on loud even when I was in the shower, just in case. But the silence was consistent, clear, cruel. By the third day, the ache in my chest had turned into something else. Not anger, not yet. Just a quiet kind of grief. The kind you feel when someone is still alive but already gone. I didn't tell anyone. Not yet. Not even Olivia, my best friend. I didn't want to say the words out loud, saying it would make it more real. And I wasn't ready for real. I wasn't even ready to feel. Instead, I kept moving. I went to work, smiled when I had to, and came home to an apartment that felt emptier by the day. The space still smelled like Charlie's cologne. His toothbrush was still in my bathroom. A few of his t-shirts were still folded neatly in the drawer he claimed months ago. But he hadn't called, hadn't texted, hadn't asked if I was okay, or if the baby was okay. On the 6th day, Olivia noticed something was off. We were at our favorite little cafe, sitting by the window. She was talking about her latest drama at work, when she suddenly stopped mid-sentence and looked at me closely. "You're quiet, too quiet. What's going on with you?" she said. I opened my mouth, then closed it again. My hands trembled as I wrapped them around my coffee cup, and then the tears came. "I'm pregnant," I whispered. Her eyes widened. "Wait, what?" I nodded, barely able to speak. "It's Charlie's." She was silent for a beat, then reached across the table and took my hand. Her grip was warm, steady, reassuring. "Does he know?" she asked. "I told him, the night I found out," I said, crying. "And," she said, "he walked out. He said he needed air." "That was almost a week ago," I replied. Olivia's face darkened. "He hasn't called since?" I shook my head. She sat back, crossed her arms, and exhaled sharply. She sat back, crossed her arms, and exhaled sharply. "Wow. I mean, I always thought he was a good guy, but this is something else," she said. "I don't even know what to think. I don't want to hate him, but I don't know if I can forgive him either." I murmured, "You don't have to figure everything out right now. One day at a time, okay?" Oliva said, "But whatever you decide, this baby, this future, you won't go through it alone," Olivia said gently. I cried again, this time into her shoulder. It was the first time in days that I felt like I wasn't drowning. That night, I opened my journal, the one I hadn't written in since the early days of our relationship, and I wrote something simple. "I don't know what the future holds, but this is a new chapter for me." The months passed, slowly at first. I counted them by the changes in my body. How my belly grew round and full, how my ankles swelled, how I could feel tiny kicks at night when the world was silent. Charlie never came back. There were days I thought he might, days I imagined him standing at the door with flowers, or showing up at the hospital when the time came, asking for forgiveness. But none of that happened. I went to doctor's appointments alone. I shopped for baby clothes alone. I stood in front of the mirror and watched my life change. Alone. Olivia was the only one who stood by me through it all. She was there during my lowest moments, holding space for my tears and supporting me in her own quiet, meaningful way. But something strange happened in that solitude. I got stronger. Not all at once. Some days I still cried into my pillow, aching for the man I once believed would protect me. Some nights I whispered his name to the ceiling, wondering if he ever thought of me, of us. But even through the pain, I kept moving. I decorated the nursery with soft grays and light blues. I took birthing classes. I read every book I could find about raising a child with love. And as my due date came closer, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. It was a cold, clear morning when I went into labor. Olivia was the one who drove me to the hospital. She held my hand through the pain, whispered encouragement through each contraction, and didn't leave my side once. And when my son was placed in my arms, tiny and warm and blinking up at me with sleepy eyes, I knew I had already survived the hardest part. I named him Daniel, not after anyone, just Daniel. A name that felt strong and gentle all at once. A name that didn't carry any past, only the promise of the future. As I held him, tears rolled down my cheeks. Not tears of sadness, but of awe. I had created life. I had walked through the fire and come out holding something perfect. Charlie never called. Not even after the birth announcement went out. Not even when Olivia tagged me in a photo with my newborn son. So I stopped waiting. I stopped wondering. I stopped needing anything from a man who couldn't stay when it mattered most. Instead, I poured everything I had into being a mother. And as the months passed, I began to feel full again. Not because of a man, but because of the little boy who gripped my finger with his tiny hand and smiled in his sleep. Though he walked away like it was easy, left me with a growing belly and a heart full of questions. I cried. I broke. But I didn't stay broken. I found pieces of strength I never knew I had. This child, he's not just a reminder of what was lost, but of what I still have. I won't lie, some nights still hurt. But each sunrise reminds me that even after abandonment, life goes on. And I'll rise with it. For me, and for him. Thank you for listening. Your support means the world to us. To every single mom out there, I see you. You are brave, you are strong, and you are enough. I hope you find the love, peace, and support you truly deserve. Keep going. You're not alone. I'm sending you the love you deserve. Like if you enjoyed this story. Share with your friends to help them learn English. Subscribe for more English stories. See you next time.